for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Fear in the city of San Francisco after students were among those targeted in a nationwide series of racist text messages.
Sending out this text to say it's okay for you to be mean to black people.
The president of the San Francisco NAACP held a town hall tonight to address the hate-filled messages. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Meebeck.
And I'm Jana Kaltiyama. KTVU's Zach Sauce was there at the event tonight, and he joins us live now from the city. Zach.
Yeah, and the FBI now trying to track down whoever was responsible for those messages. Similar messages received in other parts of the country today. The president of the San Francisco NAACP calling on the community to come together to condemn them.
Free. They have every right to be free.
Reverend Amos Brown, president of the San Francisco NAACP, after speaking with several black students in the city's school district targeted by racist text messages.
This is traumatic. It's trauma on their psyche, their minds, and they are fearful that they will receive bodily harm.
Brown speaking out at a town hall in the city Sunday night. The text now being investigated by the FBI, sent out following the presidential election, and also received by black men, women, and students in other parts of the country, including New York, Alabama, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee.
We have to protect all of our children, and I'm worried and concerned. That's why I'm here today.
One example.
In this round, here's Quan LX.
Charles, we just watched a news story where the leader of the NAACP in San Francisco held a town hall meeting about racist text messages that came out the day after Donald Trump was elected. And these text messages went to men, women, and children as young as elementary school students, high school students, college students, etc., went all across the country. And these text messages were very hateful and racist in nature, and they were designed to frighten and scare black people, to say that since Donald Trump has been elected, we now have a free license to go after black people and go after black people anyway, by any means necessary. We can do what we want to do to you now since Trump has been reelected. My problem with that story is, see, it's boot-licking, handkerchief-head, scared-to-death Negro leaders like that one in NAACP in San Francisco who should never speak at a time like this to black people and black youth. You mean to tell me in 2024 some racist skinheads or Klan members send out a text threatening black children, threatening black youth, threatening black families, and the best you can say is, we're afraid, we're scared, we had a right to be afraid? Shut up! Why don't you tell our people that live in the right to carry states, make sure you got your guns ready. Make sure you got plenty of bullets. Don't go out by yourself. Go out in groups. Stay together. Black men, patrol your neighborhoods. Get off the corner. So just in case these racists want to carry out their racist agenda, they gonna meet some Negroes like they ain't never met before. We need black leaders to tell black youth, don't be afraid no more. Stand up, mobilize, and organize, and do what the Trump supporters do. They're not afraid to defend what they believe in. They're not afraid to defend their sanctity, their way of life, and the peace and civility of their community. Well, guess what? Tell black people it's time to call to arms now to those racists that are threatening us. If you try to fulfill and carry out those threats, we'll hold court right where we find you.
Well, let's press pause. You're making a lot of assumptions of facts not in evidence, right? The FBI is looking for who sent these mass texts. It seems like they were targeting African Americans, probably off some sort of organizational list or campaign list, because you've got to have the data, right? And the question is who had access to the data so they could send this. And the real question remains is, well, if you read the text, they're absurd. They're absurdly ugly, right? Talking about picking cotton and all this stuff. And the question is, and it was in the immediate aftermath of the election. So the question is, was this, like you said, Ku Klux Klan white racists targeting black people in America to scare them or fearmonger? Or we also have the very real possibility, was this people on the left of whatever race using a race hoax to
or it could have been Russia.
Hold on, most certainly could have been, but I think it's far more likely that it was a race hoax used to get Donald Trump and his supporters bad press, while allowing people to have things like town hall meetings and KRIV victimization without any actual victimization beyond mere words. And if these texts were, if they threaten violence, it's absolutely a crime. But if they were just saying ugly things, ugly racist things, that's not a crime. That's probably protected from governmental response by the First Amendment or the Free Speech Clause of the First Amendment. And the real question is, let's find out who. Let's find out who is responsible for this and put them on blast.
But that's not my point of contention here.
Like we always do when it's a race hoax.
But that's not my point of contention.
All of a sudden we go media silent.
My point of contention is weak need head bowing old times not forgotten, put us back in land to pick cotton, scared to death Negro leaders.
I don't think that's
that when they tell black people to protect themselves, they sound like they have lost their testicular fortitude. We need black men who got some real kahunas to speak to black people now when we're under threat of violence from any racist. Well, I'm time out with this softness and this weakness.
We don't know if they're under threat of violence.
But if they are, be prepared to protect yourself.
It's a big if. But more importantly, the way you're belittling the legacy and the achievements of both the NAACP locally in San Francisco and generally across
I didn't say the
country,
NAACP. I said that weak Negro leader who's speaking for the NAACP.
I think
he's the problem.
I don't think he's the problem. I think it's whoever's sending those
he
racist
is scared.
texts.
He's the problem.
Whether it's
because
white people
you're not telling
or
black
race
people
hoaxers,
to protect themselves. You ain't telling black people to defend themselves. You said it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be fearful. Reverend Hammock, Pastor Porkchop, Deacon Chickenfoot, sit down and be quiet. Let some men stand up who will tell our people the day is over of us being afraid.
It is okay to have emotions. He's correct in that. But more importantly, this is a man who has lived a life in service, right? And you are condemning him just to make a point. And your point isn't lost on me. Yes, I think people should be encouraged to stand up for themselves and fight for what's right. But he wasn't saying don't stand up for yourself. He wasn't saying
that's exactly what he was saying.
He's saying it's okay to be
It's tragic on their psyche.
Right?
It's trauma. Man, be quiet. Let me tell you something. It's time that we give some trauma to those bigots and racists who truly want to harm black people. We need to reverse that trauma.
And if it turns out it was a black person just trying to get bad press for Trump, do you want to bring that same trauma to them?
Yes.
Okay.
If it turns out that a black person, let me say this.
Goes silent.
Now I'm going to say this.
Shuts down.
If it turns out that it's a brother or sister behind this, they are traitors to the best interest of the black community and should be treated as such, because what they did was cause unnecessary trauma and fear in families and in individuals and children that didn't deserve it, to serve their own motivational agenda. So, hey, we should handle them also, yes.
But see, what we've seen now, when we see horrible people like Nick Fuentes, white supremacists, saying ugly things, it gets a lot of media attention. But when you see time and time again, and we've seen it over and over again in the last 15 years, horrible things spray painted, allegations that then unravel, turn out not to be true.
I dealt with one in Huntsville.
And the media
where the man burned down his own house and spray painted N-word on the house and said the white supremacist did it. And come to find out, this Negro burned down his own place. And then his family member died in the fire. So yes, I've dealt with that too.
Okay, but what we need to do as a country is we need to hold both of them to the same accounting, right? And your assumption that this is white people necessarily, when it's someone hiding behind their Twitter fingers. No,
I said if it is, it's time out for telling our people to be afraid.
Okay, and let's not condemn this pastor.
Man, Reverend Hammock, Deacon Chickenfoot, Bishop Moron, sit down somewhere. All that scared to death talking. Okay. You sound like a man who has lost all of testicular fortitude.
And I would like to say to Reverend Amos Brown, thank you for your service to the Bay Area and this country.
Yeah, you like Chicken George, that's why.
I think in a normal country, we would say, hold on a second, maybe we need to have a different set of regulations for social media platforms now that they're this big.
It would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
And then moves them through YouTube videos, through podcasts, moves them from that annoyance all the way slowly to to a full-blown fascist politic. We don't have the equivalent of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson to move that man in a feminist direction.
Go yourself. Is that clear?
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
All right, Quanell, I can tell you, I completely agree with Elon Musk's sentiment at the end of that montage, which was CNN, The View, and MSNBC all having their pundits advocate for ratcheting down on American citizen speech in our new public square, which is social media. And they're advocating it. They've been at it. You know, John Kerry made an impassioned speech for attacking the free speech clause of the First Amendment just a few months back. But these are all pundits who make their living on free speech, who are too stupidly short-sighted to see, well, the policies they support today aren't necessarily the hive mind, politically correct policies of the coming day. And I will tell you, as an American, it shocks me that it was a South African, non-American who immigrated here when he was studying that is the strongest advocate for maintaining free speech, a right that has been lost in the United Kingdom and much of the European Union. And they're using it by saying free speech. When they say social media, they're saying free speech and lack of censorship is to blame for the overwhelming electoral victory of Donald Trump. And I think it's insane. We need to protect free speech in this country. I don't applaud Elon Musk for everything. I applaud him for that.
You know, Charles, I want to point out the hypocrisy. And I want to point out to black people in particular that we need to be absolutely conscious and aware of the hypocrisy that is playing out before our eyes. The Democrats have always been ones advocating free speech on social media when we felt that social media platforms were destroying Donald Trump, was destroying and combating what they believed to be rhetoric that was against the interests of this country. They were supporting social media outlets that called Mr. Trump the second coming of Hitler. They were supporting social media outlets that called him a communist. And now when they lose an election, they turn right around and say, we want censorship. Well, we want now free speech to not be so free anymore. We want to censor free speech platforms on social media. Well, then that is the actions of a communist government. That is the actions of a dictator. When a dictator can say, now this is what can be said and this is what cannot be said on social media platforms, it sounds like China. But it was the Democrats who accused Trump, if he would be elected, that he would be a dictator. Can't we open our eyes and see the political shenanigans and games that are being played on both sides of the aisle? Now that one has lost the election, everything they accused that man of, they want to implement now to fight against him. And now the other side is saying, see, we want all these free speech platforms when the Republicans were condemning free speech platforms when they were fighting against Donald Trump, against Mark Zuckerberg and others. But now that Elon Musk has stepped up to the plate and supports free speech and supports Donald Trump, oh, we want censorship. Man, this ain't but a damn game.
Well, and the truth is that because the Supreme Court or no courts have recognized social media as a right, and we saw during the 2020 campaign, Silicon Valley kind of coalesced with the Democratic Party to just, remember, the New York Post got thrown off Twitter for publishing a very correct story, a truthful story about Hunter Biden's laptop's contents. We saw people getting thrown off social media for talking about the laptop. We saw people getting thrown off social media for talking about a number of things. And the response was, well, this is a private platform, so speech isn't protected. I think we've got to revisit that. And when we talked about how the shift from the math of Roe v. Wade shifted to Dobbs, but I think that here, I think that was just activism by the court, but here we've had this massive shift in the realities of America, right? And the public square isn't the town square where you have a crier and people arguing, debating things of the town hall. Everyone does that on social media now. And while you don't have a right to advocate for violence, you don't have a right to make threats, you don't have a right to do certain things, and there are content controls, right, if it's designed for children and other things, but we do need to have a right to political free speech.
But what
And
they were talking
do
about on
not
those
have it
platforms,
in the EU, they do not have it in the UK,
but Charles,
and it's terrifying that it might be coming here.
Did you hear what that man said? Well, we don't have a Joe Rogan to direct the audience and the people toward feminist platforms.
Well, because
that sounds like envy.
Well,
that sounds like jealousy.
Well, I mean, you heard about Kamala Harris.
Look, man, that's dangerous.
Well, but think of it. So Kamala Harris's campaign went through $1 billion, and some of that was spent. $100,000 was recreating the set of a popular woman's podcast. They built it, spent $100,000 building out a hotel room to just use the set once in D.C. because Kamala wanted to do the podcast, didn't want to travel for it. There's been reports, I don't know if accurate, that Oprah Winfrey received $1 million payment for her interview of Kamala Harris.
But why would Oprah Winfrey care about $1 million?
Right. Well,
she's worth billions of dollars. Why would she care about a little measly $1 million?
You know how much Donald Trump spent on Joe Rogan? $0, right? He got 200 million views. They got less than $1 million for Kamala on the, I forget the name of that podcast. But clearly, if the Democrats were winning in social media, they would not
have a different conversation.
But I don't care who's winning.
It would be a different conversation.
Free speech is more important.
I agree.
In today's Face-Off, up.
Just shocking dash cam video showing what appears to be a car reversing violently into an SUV after cutting it off. Look at that. The entire encounter on the Belt Parkway caught on camera and going viral. And get this, it all appears to be a case of insurance fraud.
All right, and if it hadn't been for a driver having a dash cam rolling, people probably never would have believed it. Fox 5's Duarte Geraldino has more on the shocking video and how you can protect yourself.
This dashcam video posted on TikTok going viral over the weekend. It captures the moment a Honda Accord cuts off a Sheepa Natasha on the Belt Parkway in Queens. She slams on the brakes, but then...
Oh my God, what is she doing? Babe, what happened?
You saw that right. The car in front backs into her.
I got into an accident, oh my God. This guy just reversed into me. What the hell is going on?
So, Cornell, our face-off up, although we don't have his name because he wasn't named in the reporting, that was the older story about the original incident. I have a dash cam, my wife has a dash cam. I tell everybody they need to get dash cams on their car right now because fraud is exploding. But this man who was returning from Ecuador, a 28-year-old, was just arrested. That incident happened a few weeks ago, but he was just arrested this weekend, getting off a plane in New York. From Ecuador. The other 3 members of the vehicle engaged in the insurance fraud are gone. We think they have fled to a foreign country. The mainstream media is not reporting, but apparently there are people that entered this country unlawfully that are from a foreign country and that have the right, because they can go back and forth now because they got rather from the Biden administration. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with it, but could you imagine just being a mother with your children in the car? And you have these people that came in this country unlawfully.
Charles, that's nothing new.
They cut you off to try to cause the wreck, and that's not enough. When it fails, they throw it in reverse. Charles, it's terrifying. Get dash cams.
I'm 53 years old, and I remember when I was a young child that was happening.
Oh, of course.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I remember to where the family had a running joke. Don't drive an expensive car in certain neighborhoods because they're going to stop and hit the brakes right in front of you, hope that you hit them in the back. Everybody yells whiplash, whiplash to file an insurance claim. Charles, that's been going on since I was a child. The only difference now is people have what you say, dash cams and social media. But insurance fraud on this level has been happening around America for a long time. In fact, there would be groups of them that would get in the car, go to affluent suburban neighborhoods, and they would hit the brakes, cut somebody off, jam on the brakes, get hit in the back, and everybody in the car file an insurance claim on a rich person's vehicle. That is nothing new. That's been going on in America, Charles.
I'm not disagreeing that it's been going on, but what I'm talking about here, what I find offensive is when major elements of the case, like people that came into this country unlawfully and they're seen portrayed as refugees, or there's a widespread insurance scam going on attached to Venezuelan gangs in New York right now.
Yeah, but you got corrupt.
Hold on.
You got corrupt clinics and corrupt doctors
I get you.
participating
corrupt,
also.
Don't forget corrupt lawyers.
Participating
right?
also.
But here's the thing. We need to have conversations about what's really going on and what's really impacting American citizens' lives, and we don't need the media hiding it from us, right? They make no mention of the residency status. They just casually mention, well, not using the name, and the argument is, well, we don't want to, suggest that there should be hatred about immutable characteristics or residency status, so we don't tell the whole story. Well, that's nonsense. Let Americans make American decisions. Let's journalism needs to return to journalism. And you know what? One thing that I really, these sanctuary cities, right? I don't care if you're white, black, brown, Asian, you come to this country and you commit a crime like this that victimizes American citizens, you should be gone. And if they catch you again in this country, give you a decade in the federal pen, right? We should not have to, this nonsense that we should keep people that entered this country either lawfully or unlawfully, but especially unlawfully, who then go on to commit crimes, right? That they shouldn't have a consequence because of political correctness is absolutely nonsense. And the sad thing is it sounds like the other three, they got away.
And Charles,
it's absolute nonsense. Thank God this mother had her camera.
This type of fraud has been going on in this country for a long time.
I got you, but it's exploding right now in America.
Charles, but it's exploding with corrupt clinics, corrupt chiropractors, corrupt doctors and rehab facilities.
We need a rule of law.
That's a $1 billion market. That is a $1 billion market, brother.
If we have people coming to this country for crime tourism, like we've heard in Los Angeles and San Francisco,
come get a free check and go back.
I think we absolutely need to have some real consequences, and the media needs to talk about it. And this scumbag, what if another vehicle would have hit that woman with her children in the car from behind after she stopped and killed those kids? I hope there's some real consequence, and I wish the media would start telling the whole story instead of part of the story to be politically correct.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.